free. My time's running up. So tell me why we're waiting for love. Waiting for love. I love. Didn't see you coming in there. Should have knocked. Whatever. Do you know what? While you're here, I could show you the remake I made of Waiting for Love by Brooks using only stock, Logic, and free plugins. So the lead is basically centered around a single oscillator. It is a single voice saw with white noise on it. It sounds like this. Yeah. Everything else is just to add more texture and power to that. Like this one and this one. Just different saws, different octaves, different ways of doing it. This entire thing is just made up of different saws at different octaves in different ways, just to give more texture. Now, that may not be that interesting, but what is quite interesting, I think anyway, is the pitch modulation. So, firstly, there is the classic Brooks pitch. It's just a really short enveloper affecting coarse pitch. Normally you'd do it much harder than this, but in this case it was quite a weak effect. Basically just there to give attack. Kind of the same way like you make a kick, but on a lead. It's quite cool. But what's interesting here is the second pitch modulation. It's affecting much weaker, but it's much longer. And this kind of gives like a I don't know how to describe it, but like it swoops down at the beginning, and the effect it gives is it gives a personality to the tone. I'm going to remove it and you'll hear the difference. That's without it, this is with it. Like it's a big difference, I think, and I really think it really gives personality. I have that on the second lead too. The effects for these are pretty much the same as always. It's distortion, compression, EQ, some sort of stereo control, and reverb. It's really not that fancy for this. The reverb here, I have two. I have a small room to put in a space, and then the big room reverb, or the larger whatever reverb want to call it. It has the classic sidechained to the lead signal, so that when the lead plays, it ducks in volume. I explained a lot of these in my Future Bounce tutorial if you want to check that out. But yeah, it basically gives a lot cleaner sound. Then what's interesting though is this delay. This is what gives a lot of the space and power to the lead. So it's just an 1/8 note delay, a little bit of feedback, just a little bit of space there. Cleaned it up a bit, EQ, compressor to the same thing as before, trying to move it out of the way of the lead when it does play. And then a gain automation, clearing it out of the way of these long notes, which I felt there was a lot of overlap there that I felt was kind of disturbing. So I did that. This is what the lead sounds at without the delay. With the delay. It's a huge difference. I think that's like one of the important things I learned from remaking this. Then there's this vocal phrase. It's just a Water Rings preset with some ADSR tweaking. And then synthetic voice preset in RetroSynth. I adjusted these shapes to go from more of from the original preset, which is like an E sound, to a more ah. And then I put on a vocal format shifting down a little bit to emphasize that. Kind of hear that ah sound. It's weak, but it's there. And then there's the sidechain I'll go over quickly. I figured out I needed to sidechain the delay as well. And I figured it would just actually be easier to send everything I needed to sidechain with the same shape anyway. I sent it all to one bus. I originally had this kickstart. That's the shape I was using, but I moved over to a tall filter just so you could see how that shape would look like in tall filter. And it sounds just as good. You can just as well use tall filter, really. Bass. The bass is actually, I haven't even named that, jeez. The bass is the same thing as the lead, actually. It's a single voice saw with white noise on it. Yeah, it has a little bit of symmetry, modulation, just to give it a bit of movement. And everything after that is just to add texture to that. There's this layer. Yeah, it's lagging a little bit. But basically how I got these is just, firstly, the Brooks pitch bend, or pitch attack, then some sync, symmetry, and here I even modulate the amount of voices. Just modulating these by like a really long ADSR here to kind of make, over the course of the tone, it moves. I really wanted a bit more movement in there. Most of these have white noise infused. There is a lot of white noise in this track. Like, heck, yes, a lot of white noise. Then there's two other layers. This grunge wobble bass, a preset in Alchemy that I set to polyphonic and put on a duplication. I set it 1 octave below, slightly lower volume then, and it really gives like a gritty sound with that like 1 octave too low to be audible kind of sound. Sorry for the lag. Oh dear. Yeah, it just really fattens it up. And deep distortion pulse, one of my favorite bass presets, gives kind of that more Brooksy bass kind of sound. And then there's this noise. This works in place of like an impact or a white noise downer in the track. It plays on the same notes as the bass and the chords then. And it's just noise pump preset, tweaked then so that it just, you know, plays when you want it to. Here you go. Then the sub, real quick, is square wave with a compressor, pretty hard compressor with some distortion on it. EQ removing everything above like 300 hertz basically. I'll explain these peaks in a little bit towards the mixing bit. Monoization and a sidechain. This is separate from the sidechain. This one goes straight to stereo out. The sub I've sidechained separately to make sure it really gets out of the way of the kick. Then the chords. The chords are pretty simple. It's again, everything in this is pretty simple. It's a saw with white noise on it and a square wave with some white noise on it and further back in the mix to give a little bit more timbrel width there. And sounds like that. Layered with Dream Dancer, which I really like for these kind of chords to give a bit more mids. Now the second half, that's where it gets quite interesting and quite tricky. This was, I spent quite some time trying to figure this out. Still, I'm not quite sure what it was, but basically, I thought it was basically, I figured out piano with some slightly odd EQ. Just used grand piano from Logic. I love that sound. Grand piano just sounds good. Anyway, yeah, the second one is the Funk Spin It sculpture. It's a kind of a guitar emulator. And then what really drives it is an electric piano with some quite harsh distortion. All of these very harshly stereo spread, and I think I got pretty close to the original there. Right, for the drums that are very simple, count on Brooks to be a little bit edgy and not use a clap. Yeah, basically it's a Brooks kick. You can find these anywhere these days. Some EQ, again, explaining this in the mixing phase. It sounds like this. And then I use the top kick, actually the kick from my track Dust Devil, plug, boom, some removing the lows, curling off the highs, and then just placing it far back in the mix. Just really felt it gave the right top end to that kick. It really gave it what I felt it needed. Yeah. Then the fills, unfortunately, and as quite commonly, it's quite boring. Cymatic snare, reversed into itself. Actually an Apple Loops sample here. It's a festival kick, the beginning of it. Then here, there's this snare here, which is just snare 1 from the Silver Lake kit, and this is an old sample I had from one of my old songs. It sounds pretty good. I quite like it, actually. But what I quite like is this sound. This is what it sounds like originally. And it's a jam block high. Basically, it didn't have any highs. So even though it's called jam block high. So what I did is I put on an exciter, found the right frequency, and an OTT, quite harsh, bringing up the highs, and then an EQ, removing the lows. And that just really, I love it. Like from this to this. Yeah, I just really like that. Then reverb, some automation there. Then at the end, this is from the original song. That's the only part that is from the original song. Right. So the mixing. This is what I've been looking forward to showing. Okay, so that's just an EQ for automation purposes. This match EQ. I showed this before, but I'm going to show it again because this really helped take this remake to the next level. So I cut out the drop from the song, put it in the reference and put in current, and it showed me the EQ curve, the difference between them, and I went into each instrument, the lead and all of that, and I played around moving the EQs where it said it needed to be moved, and it really worked. It really helped. Like that really brought up like the timbre of the sound that was in the original. That is what all of that weird EQ is about. That's why I have that peak there. And that's most of the reason why this EQ is there. Yeah, it just really works very well. And I highly recommend doing some sort of reference track here and putting that in, if you use Logic anyway, or some sort of EQ that you can use reference audio in it. And then it really helps you put in the right direction for mixing. In the end, I just put it at like 35%. I felt that was fine. Some might say for remakes that this is cheating. I say it's smart. The rest of it is just for loudness purposes, really. Loud limiter, bringing it up to the top. Compressor, just at like very lightly, just evening it out a little bit. Ozone elements. This is a bit debatable if it's free or not, but I say it is because it's been like given out for free like twice, different separate occasions. And it's just too good not to use. It's just too convenient. Basically, I've gone into mid-side EQ, gone into side, removed all the side there, basically making the sub mono, and then boosting a little bit of the side high shelf, making the top a little bit wider. Then this limiter, I've just gone in and increased the threshold until I felt like it was distorting and brought it down a bit. Used that as reference, then brought in a loudness meter. Logic has one, and you can just see, I just measured that and I felt like at 6 I didn't feel any distorting or anything that was uncomfortable, and I saw it was like at 6.57. That was fine. That really works well. Some people like want to bring it up way higher than that, like -3, and I'm just not into that really. But that is in fact it. I hope you enjoyed watching. Please, if you can, remember to like, comment, or subscribe. It really does help out. All the other important socials are below. I'm a head out now. Take care. Have a good day. Stay inside. Yeah, you get the point.